Hello, everyone, and welcome to Lunch with Lake Ridge, where we serve bite-sized pieces of community information that you can digest at your convenience. I'm Bernie Guthrie, the General Manager of Lake Ridge Parks and Recreation Association located in eastern Prince William County, Virginia, and I'll be your host for this segment. Today, we have Rick Canizales with us. He is the Director of Transportation for Prince William County. Rick, thank you so much for joining us and bringing your team today.
Oh, thank you very much for the opportunity to come inform the community.
We always love to hear what's going on in and about our community, and it's so hard in this day of social media to really pluck out what news is pertinent and important to us. So we really appreciate the opportunity to sit down with all of you and ask just a few pointed questions. The first question that we have is, overall, how does the county prioritize transportation projects and allocate funding for them?
That is a great question. I think that we do a great job in prioritizing. We take a good methodical approach at it. And Megan Landis, our grants expert, could tell you a little bit more about it.
Megan?
Good afternoon, Megan Landis. I'm the regional coordinator. I manage the grants program. As Rick said, we do have a methodology. It's a tiered methodology for prioritizing projects for application. So tier one is our must. We look at projects that are in our comprehensive plan. That is a multi-year planning effort. It goes through significant public outreach and it has been approved and adopted by the board. So we are looking to our comp plan for projects. Second kind of must, if there is a funding match that's required, we must have an identified funding match. Then we move on to our second tier of criteria. These are things like, does the project include multimodal elements? Does it have data-driven benefits that we can quantify to safety, congestion mitigation, economic development? And does it have support additional goals in our strategic plan? So we're trying to check off as much of those criteria as possible. And then finally, we're looking at the specific grant program. Each grant program has very specific requirements and priorities as well. A lot of these grant programs are highly competitive. So we want to make sure we're putting in really strong applications, and applications are resource intensive. So we're very strategic about the applications that we submit forward.
Are there any grant opportunities that you've seen that associations or a community might be eligible for? Just out of curiosity.
Yes. So a lot of the grant applications that we go for are specific to local government or state government, but there are a number out there that are open to nonprofits and community associations. And I'd be happy to share some resources with you. But in terms of grants that we go for that may be applicable to your community, I think one that hits close to home for you guys is the Transportation Alternatives Program. It is a grant funding program that funds sidewalks and trails projects. And it was through this grant that we actually funded the sidewalk on Old Bridge Road in front of Tackett's Mill that was just completed last year. And we have another project on Old Bridge Road by Forest Grove and Oakwood that is going to be funded by a TAP grant, and that will be going to construction very soon. And the next round of grant applications is actually open now. So if you have some ideas for sidewalk and trail projects for your community, I encourage you to reach out to your district supervisor to discuss this upcoming opportunity.
Wow. So is that how they normally are initiated? Is somebody like us would reach out to you, or a homeowner would reach out to you and say, hey, what's the possibility? And then it grows from there?
I think we take it, at grassroots. We take it from communities. We take it from supervisors. We take it from individuals, planning commissions. Our comprehensive plan, which we work very hard on, just an update to it now, that is all the basis for the projects that we kind of put forth at this point.
Well, it sounds like you have a lot of pieces that go into your puzzle.
We do, but the good thing for Lake Ridge is that you guys have been actually very productive in getting those pieces. And I know your Supervisor Bodie, who's also my supervisor. I live a little further up in the district, but my supervisor as well. He's done a good job in pushing us to get projects for his community. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But Lake Ridge has received a good share of monies lately, and it has some great upcoming projects that we'll talk about in a little bit.
Wow, it's amazing to hear how many people are really pulling for us, huh?
Mhm.
So, one of the hot topics around our community recently has been electric vehicles. They're a hot topic in the world in general. But we hear a lot from the different homeowners, not only single family and townhomes, which are, I think, a little more able to supply their own source and their own charging, but from the apartments and from the condominiums. And we're wondering, are there any initiatives in the county that you're aware of that may be looking towards those common elements?
That is a great question. Two of our guys who can actually answer that question for you today, because Megan is literally working on a grant right now for those kinds of facilities, and Paulo's working hard on making sure that as part of our design guidelines that this is included, because it was included as part of our comprehensive plan update. And he'll talk a little bit about that. So why don't I let Paulo get into what we did with our comprehensive plan about those things and what we're coming up and moving forward with in our design standards and what we're trying to implement there. Paulo.
Thank you, Rick. Again, my name is Paulo Bilita, Transportation Planning Manager with County Transportation. And Rick had brought up our recently approved mobility chapter. As part of our mobility chapter, we're looking to really anticipate emerging technology and emerging trends. We're seeing more of EV charging stations, EV vehicles, electric scooters and bikes. So because of that direction and that plan, as part of our updates to the Design, Construction, and Standards Manual, which is county standards, we're looking at ways to include standards for EV charging stations as part of development, whether it's in a multifamily community or a shopping center. So we're really looking at ways to accommodate future use of EV vehicles as they continue to increase.
Amazing.
And Megan, did you want to talk a little bit about the grant that we're going forth right now?
Sure. So the county is actively pursuing grants to expand the use of publicly accessible EV charging stations. We do have some at the McCourt Government Complex now. This federal grant that we're preparing now would be for EV charging station at Chin, both in front of the library and the Aquatics Fitness Center. And in terms of for your community, Dominion Energy had a smart charging infrastructure program. It was a pilot program. It did end, but we were recently informed they're going to be bringing that back. And that is something that your community would be eligible to apply for. It's a rebate program, and it does cover EV charging stations at multifamily homes.
Oh, that's incredible and incredibly exciting. We're always looking forward to see what the future brings, right?
Right.
Are there any, speaking of traffic, speaking of vehicles, are there any planned traffic calming measures, speed bumps, roundabouts, or anything that might just generally improve safety? We see a lot, a large uptick really in the traffic accidents around the neighborhoods, and we're just kind of wondering what you're seeing from your perspective.
Yeah, we are seeing a lot of accidents. Actually, the amount of accidents that we are seeing in the areas has pushed the board to kind of do a pilot program that we're doing a photo red pilot program and doing some and also speed cameras in school zones and in construction zones. So the board last month approved, or what I think it was this month, approved that pilot program to move forward and gave us the funds to move forward with it. So we'll be testing this automated enforcement program in the next year here from August to August, and reporting back to the board next summer on its results and see what we do with safety. But we are having a lot of safety issues around the county. We have seen increased accidents, increased fatalities for the last 2 years in a row. And again, Salah is part of our traffic team that has been looking into this, and he can tell you a little bit about some of the improvements in some of the neighborhoods that we're working with in your community and some of the projects that we're looking to actively do. Salah?
Hey, Salah Salem. I'm a senior traffic engineer. I run the residential traffic calming program. So, I mean, across Lake Ridge, across the communities that you guys have, we've in the past year completed 15 different speed studies on 10 different roads. The main ones were Valleywood, Colby, and Springwoods. The only ones that have qualified thus far, that have qualified for the engineering, is Valleywood Drive and Seminole, wherein we're working on traffic calming plans for both of those. So basically what that means is we'll put together a plan of what traffic calming measures we're going to put out there on the road, and we'll get that approved with VDOT, and then we'll work with the community to get the petition signed and get over the threshold for that. But those are the 2 roads that we're working on, but the other ones all fail to qualify. But to Rick's point, we do see, across the county that if speeding is an issue, we've had a lot more roads qualify in the past year than probably the past few years combined. It's definitely an issue that we're looking at, and we're looking at different mitigation measures, not just speed tables, but a lot of things in the traffic calming manual and different, things in the toolbox that we're looking at to mitigate that.
And can you speak a little bit to process so people understand what they have to do to get something started in their neighborhood if they would like to?
Sure. Much like the sidewalks we talked about before, we field the requests from supervisors' offices, or a citizen or constituent can call in and alert us to a speeding issue they feel is happening in their community. They let us know what road it's on, and the first step in the process is we initiate the speed study. We have a rolling list of locations across the county that we have a schedule for the study on. We perform the speed study, we gather the data, we do that over 3 days, and we're basically looking at recording the average speeds. Once we have that speed study and it documents a speeding problem, which is an average speed of 5 miles over the posted speed limit, then we can move on and to develop what we're at now with Valleywood and Seminoles, developing the plan, getting that, getting community feedback on that plan and getting that approved with VDOT in the state, and moving the process forward to getting those traffic calming devices implemented.
That's great. Well, I know that we get a lot of calls about people speeding, and I think that we struggle to overcome that perception that anytime you have a person walking adjacent to people who are traveling in a vehicle, they may be going 30, they may be going 35, but to the person or the pedestrian walking next to them, it feels like they're going very, very fast. And it's often difficult for us to translate that, just the design of having the sidewalk next to a road with that higher speed limit may make it feel like they're speeding, which may or may not be the case. So it's always good for them to have the information that you clearly collect in order to evaluate and ascertain whether calming measures are required or not. So it may not be the answer that we like to hear, so to speak, but it definitely, by just you're saying that of the 3, 1 did qualify, it does show that you're doing your due diligence and you're working where you can be successful, rather than, in an area that maybe doesn't need it, other than it's a perception issue. So if there's ever anything that we can do to help you in those studies, then please just let us know. We would be happy to do that. So is there any expected implementation of new technologies, such as, the smart traffic signals, or more automation in the area? Is there anything like that in the pike?
Not really right now. What I mentioned earlier is as automated as we get, we're going to do automated enforcement. Actually, on Old Bridge Road, I believe the school that we're doing is Woodbridge High School and Old Bridge Elementary there, because we're trying to get a double school into the system. So that's what the supervisor has picked for that area. Salah or Paulo, do you remember what the intersection that we're doing in Occoquan is? Because I believe that's also on Old Bridge Road. The intersection that we're going to put the red light camera on as well. Paulo or Salah will look into that, and we'll get you an answer before we get out of here. But those two, the implementation of those 2 photo enforcement devices, I think is the most prevalent that we have right now. We are looking into smart cities. We're actually using innovation out in the West End as trying to see how we can promote or set up from the beginning a smart community. So once we get that example or that pilot done, it may be something that we can implement in the future. But as Paulo said, in our comprehensive plan, we are trying to take future technologies into consideration. So we do kind of stress in there that as things come, that we need to get involved and need to make sure that the infrastructure is there to let it. Now, the automated vehicles, those come as they come by market, and as they are allowed by legislation and code. Again, a lot of those are still in test market. You've seen that there's a lot of issues with some of them at this point in time. I don't think in the federal level they've assessed the liability issue that has come upon either. Who someone comes, picks you up, you get in an accident in that car, but no one's driving it. Who's responsible? The car? You're going to take the car to court, or the company? So it becomes it becomes those kind of issues that I think that they have to get through before full implementation of something like that. But we are, through our planning efforts, preparing ourselves to kind of have that infrastructure in place in order to make sure that those new technologies are applicable in our community.
It would be so much easier if Scotty could just beam us up, right? And we wouldn't have to worry about that.
Right?
That interim step could just be
flying
skipped.
cars, the flying cars.
You know, when I was a kid growing up, that was the only way to look into the future was someday Scotty's just going to beam me where I need to go, but it hasn't happened.
Yeah, that beats airports. I'll tell you that any day.
You're absolutely right. Can you provide any information on upcoming road construction projects that would impact our community on, you know, a bit on the larger size? And how will they be managed so that we can, you know, minimize the disruption? I know that summertime is the peak time because the school buses aren't running. So we're always curious what's coming over the time.
So Paulo's going to go through some of the projects that we have in the community that are going to they're either in design or starting to be active. They're either in design right away or almost construction process. And he can tell you some of those projects. You got major ones, you got smaller sidewalk ones, but even those small sidewalk ones, I think in your community are very important in making sure that we have the connectivity there on Old Bridge Road that we have always envisioned on both sides of the road. So Paulo, why don't you drive us through some of the projects in the Occoquan district?
Sure. And some of the major projects that are further along, Rick had mentioned, we have a project at Old Bridge and Occoquan Road. This is a roadway project that realigns Old Bridge Road. So this project is actually going to construction middle of next year. Anytime we have a major project, we ensure that we're maintaining traffic. There may be some partial impacts, but we try to do those where it's non-peak. So it's something we're very aware of maintaining traffic, especially during peak hours, ensuring that the community can still use the roadway even during construction. Another major project still on the earlier side is the Old Bridge at Prince William Parkway intersection improvements project. The project is still under engineering or design. We don't anticipate construction to begin until middle of 2025. It's still a couple years away, but we'll ensure we maintain traffic.
And on that one, Gretchen, could you remind us of when we have scheduled our first public information meeting for that project?
Absolutely. The first public information meeting is scheduled for May 25th, and it will start at 6:30, and it's at Carrydale Elementary School.
Right?
Thank you, Gretchen.
You're welcome.
Paulo.
Sure. And other projects in the area somewhat away from Lake Ridge is the Summit School Road extension and Telegraph Road widening. That project is just north of the Horner Road commuter lot. I'm sure a lot of the motorists in the community utilize that area, but that project will go into construction this summer, I believe. But that is a new roadway with some widening, and we're going to minimize any traffic closures as part of the project. So those are some major projects. We also have other bike ped projects. We have sidewalk projects. Megan had mentioned the construction of sidewalk on Old Bridge between Oakwood and Forest Hill. That will occur late summer, early fall. There shouldn't be any major closures, but there will be some light construction work as part of that project. Those are some of our projects more in the construction or nearing the construction phase.
Sounds like you're moving forward. All right. Well, gosh, this has been so much information. Is there anything else that Rick, you or the team would like to share before we wrap up today?
I think just acknowledge that those projects that Paulo just talked about are some of the projects that are getting close to construction, but we do look ahead and we do move forward with stuff, and we are designing or conceptualizing projects such as the 123 Old Bridge overpass that we are kind of bringing back to conceptualize. Again, Paulo mentioned the Old Bridge and the Parkway, the Prince William County Parkway intersection, and looking at those designs. So we continue to look at all the major projects in the area. We also have a sidewalk project a little further from the community, but very important on the Parkway over by those improvements that Paulo was speaking of, a Horner Road that goes across 95. So we're going to put a sidewalk across 95 on that bridge in order to connect the east side of 95 to the west side over to that shopping center in the Target area there and the commuter
That's
line.
amazing.
Sure, and that way everybody in that side that lives in those apartments has great transit access at that Horner Road commuter lot. you know?
Yeah.
So it provides that multimodal connection needed for a lot of that family units that are in that area that may need that kind of service. So we try to hook up those projects like that, making sure that we're looking as a network as a whole. But I think that, like I mentioned earlier, Lake Ridge and the Occoquan district in general have a lot of projects, some very important and big projects going on right now that the community should be very happy to see come up or come in.
Wow, really? Thank you for keeping us connected. Well, Rick, thanks for taking time today to share the nuggets with us. We really appreciate it. And we hope that you can come back and dish up some more news very, very soon.
Anytime. I just like to thank my staff because they're the guys that do the actual work. You just see me, I'm just kind of guiding along. So these guys are the guys that do it and are out there and are my experts and are getting the work done out there for the community. So I appreciate them.
Someone
And I
has to
appreciate
steer the
you for
ship,
their time.
right?
Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah,
You
for
keep
sure.
steering that ship, but as Helen Keller once said, alone we can do so little, but together we can do so much. So
Exactly.
thank you for spending time with us today
Thank
on
you so much.
Lunch with Lake Ridge. We really appreciate meeting all of you.
Thank you, Ms. Guthrie. Take care.
Have a great day.
You too.